Imagine this: a man stands at the gates of a mystical palace, his heart racing as ancient winds sweep through golden arches. But this isn't just any palace, and he isn't just any man. What lies beyond these gates is the beginning of a story so strange, so profound, that it challenges everything we think we know about love, loyalty, and destiny. But wait, let me ask you, if you had the chance to rewrite the rules of love, would you take it? Keep that question in mind as we step into the tale of The Harem, a love story beyond imagination. Before we dive deep, let's clear up one thing. Forget what you think you know about the word harem. This isn't some outdated, cliched fantasy. No, this is about something much deeper, a metaphor for the limitless dimensions of human connection and devotion. And if that sounds lofty, stick around, because by the end, you'll see what I mean. Picture a young man named Elias, born into a world where love was transactional and loyalty rare. Despite his humble beginnings, he was driven, not by greed, but by a longing for something eternal. You ever feel like there's something missing? Like despite having everything, there's this ache for something more? Elias felt that every single day. One fateful night, guided by a dream that whispered ancient secrets, Elias found himself in the desert under a sky drenched with stars. The sands shifted beneath his feet as if the earth itself were alive. And then, out of nowhere, a voice: "Are you ready to see beyond what is seen?" Hold up, pause. Imagine you're alone in the middle of nowhere, and some mystical voice hits you with a question like that. What would you do? Run? Stay? Elias? He stayed. The ground cracked open, revealing a staircase spiraling down into darkness. Curiosity or madness? Who's to say what drove him forward? But here's a truth we often forget. Sometimes you have to descend into darkness to find light. At the bottom, he entered a palace unlike any other, walls shimmering with colors that defied description, air thick with the scent of jasmine and ancient mysteries. And there, waiting for him, was a gathering unlike any he'd ever imagined. These weren't just women, they were embodiments of love in all its forms, fierce, tender, forgiving, and wild. Now, before your mind goes wandering into predictable places, let me stop you. This isn't about romance in the conventional sense. Each figure represented a different lesson Elias needed to learn. Courage, compassion, resilience, and yes, the hardest of all, letting go. One by one, they shared their stories. A warrior taught him that love sometimes means standing your ground, even when everything inside you trembles. A healer showed him that true love isn't about fixing someone but about holding space for their wounds. And then there was the wanderer, who reminded him that love, like life, is a journey, not a destination. But here's where it gets wild. Just as Elias began to grasp these lessons, the palace started to crumble. Walls shook, light fractured into chaos. Why? Because love, real love, isn't meant to be contained. It's wild, untamed, and unpredictable. And now I'll ask you, what would you do if everything you thought you'd earned was suddenly slipping through your fingers? Would you cling tighter or let go? Elias chose to let go, and in that surrender, he found freedom. As the palace dissolved into dust, he emerged back into the world, but he was changed. No longer driven by a desperate search for something outside himself, he carried within him the lessons of the harem. Love wasn't something to possess, it was something to become. He walked through bustling markets, through the noise and chaos of everyday life, but now saw beauty where there was once only distraction. The simple laughter of a child, the kindness of a stranger, the resilience of a tree swaying in the wind, these were now his reminders of the truths he'd learned. One day, as he wandered through a village, an elderly woman stopped him. Her eyes were sharp with wisdom. "You have seen the harem, haven't you?" she asked. Elias was stunned. How could she know? "They leave their mark on those who are willing to learn," she explained, "but most are too afraid to enter. They cling to what they know, too fearful to embrace the unknown." Elias nodded. He understood now that fear was the greatest barrier to love. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of loss. But love, real love, demanded courage. It required walking into the unknown with an open heart. But let's pause for a moment. Have you ever held back from saying what you truly feel because you were afraid? Maybe you wanted to tell someone you loved them, or perhaps you needed to forgive someone who hurt you. What stopped you? Fear, right? Here's a thought. What if today you chose courage over fear? What if, like Elias, you decided to step into the palace of your own heart and learn its lessons? As Elias' journey continued, he met others who were seeking their own versions of the harem. A lost artist searching for inspiration, a grieving father seeking forgiveness, a restless wanderer yearning for peace. Each of them carried wounds, but Elias knew that wounds were where the light entered. He shared his story with them, not as a hero but as a fellow traveler. And in that sharing, they found connection. Because here's another truth. Love is not a solitary journey. It's a tapestry woven from countless threads of shared experiences. And just when you think the story is over, life has a way of surprising you. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elias felt a familiar presence. The air shimmered, and for a brief moment the palace reappeared, not as a place to return to, but as a reminder that its lessons were now part of him. So I'll ask you one last question. What palace is waiting for you? What lessons are calling you to step beyond fear and into love? Don't wait for the perfect moment. It doesn't exist. Take the step now, even if it's small. Because just like Elias, your story is still unfolding. And if you have the courage to embrace it, I promise, the journey will be beyond anything you can imagine.